All right, so live again, just documenting my own personal accent training. So, quick explanation. This is something new I'm trying where I don't teach as much, I don't explain as much. Instead, it's more of a behind the scenes video where I just do my thing the way I do it if you weren't even here almost. And if you want, you can be a fly on the wall. You can watch behind the scenes. You can see the things that I actually do for real to train my Brazilian accent. And this will serve also when I, in the future, actually sound for real Brazilian and people think that I'm Brazilian, because that's my goal, that's where I want to get. This will also be a cool record of the journey that I've gone on to achieve that result. So, yeah, hang out if you want. Also, follow my new second YouTube channel where I'm going to start putting these behind the scenes video. You can see that link in the description below. Simple American Accent behind the scenes. That's where I'm going to start putting this type of video like I'm doing today, where I just want to show my training sessions. And then on my main channel, which is the channel you're on right now, just Simple American Accent, my plan is to put sort of more polished content, or content where I'm teaching more, content where it's more focused on you, the audience. But then on this behind the scenes channel that I'm making, where this type of video is going to go soon, it'll be, not really for my audience in a way. It's more for me, for documenting, and you just can happen to get a benefit if you're into that thing and you want to see what I actually do. All right, so enough talking. I'm going to stop talking, stop explaining. I may mix in some, but I'm going to start actually doing, because that's the point of this live today. So let's see. I don't know what I want to imitate today. I guess I may explain just a tiny, tiny bit, but not too much. Let's play with this one.
Não, Larissa é de Larissa, não vai dar problema nenhum.
Larissa. It's kind of like Larissa.
Vamos começar com a mulher mais poderosa do Brasil. Vem pra cá, Anitta! Lantejola, é um prazer receber você aqui hoje. Vai ter, eu tô muito feliz. Eu realmente me sinto um pouco desarrumada. Agora,
me sinto um pouco desarrumada.
Anitta, muito obrigada por você ter vindo. A gente sabe que a sua agenda é muito lotada.
Sei.
Desarrumada. Agora, Anitta, muito obrigada.
Agora, Anitta,
por você ter vindo. A gente sabe...
Obrigado por você ter vindo. Vindo.
Sabe que a sua agenda é muito lotada. Sinto um pouco desarrumada. Agora, Anitta, muito obrigada por você ter vindo. A gente sabe...
Muito obrigado por você ter vindo.
Que a sua agenda é muito lotada. Sinto um pouco desarrumada. Agora, Anitta, muito obrigada por você ter vindo. A gente sabe que a sua agenda é muito...
A gente sabe que sua agenda é muito
lotada.
Muito lotada. Anitta, muito obrigado por você ter vindo. A gente sabe que a sua agenda é muito lotada. A gente sabe. How does she say that?
Obrigada por você ter vindo. A gente sabe que
a gente sabe.
Sua agenda é muito... Anitta, muito obrigada por você ter vindo. A gente sabe...
Muito obrigada por você ter vindo. Vindo ou vinda? I think it'd be vindo, but I'm not sure.
Anitta, muito obrigada por você ter vindo. A gente sabe...
I think it was vindo grammatically, but the pronunciation sounds kind of like vinda. It's kind of relaxed.
Anitta, muito obrigada.
Quick note, sometimes the explanations I make are kind of for an audience, maybe, but sometimes that audience is for my future self. Or, maybe you as well, but to help narrate some of my internal processes, some of my thoughts, because some of the behind the scenes stuff you can see externally. You can just watch what I do and you can see and you can observe. But sometimes there are internal things happening that are not being documented unless I narrate them a little bit. So I may occasionally do some of that.
Você ter vindo, a gente sabe que a sua agenda
é
muito lotada. Muito obrigada por você ter vindo. A gente sabe que a sua agenda é muito lotada.
É muito lotada. Muito obrigado por você ter vindo. A gente sabe que a sua agenda é muito lotada. Anitta, muito obrigada por você ter vindo. A gente sabe que a sua agenda é muito lotada.
Muito obrigada por você ter vindo.
A gente sabe que a sua agenda é muito lotada.
Muito obrigada por você ter vindo. A gente sabe que a sua agenda é muito lotada.
Agenda.
Sinto um pouco desarrumada. Agora, Anitta, muito obrigada por você ter vindo. A gente sabe que a sua... me sinto um pouco desarrumada. Agora, Anitta, muito obrigada por você ter vindo. A gente sabe que a sua agenda é muito lotada. Fico desarrumada.
Ela fala bem rápido. Nossa.
Hoje vai ter, eu tô muito feliz. Eu realmente me sinto um pouco desarrumada. Agora, Anitta, muito obrigada por você ter vindo. A gente sabe que a sua agenda é muito lotada. desarrumada. Agora,
So I'm kind of imitating silently moving my mouth, basically, or very quietly talking while moving my mouth and trying to get the speed right. So I'm moving my mouth, but I'm not talking out loud too much because I don't want to distract myself too much from listening. I want to make sure I can still hear the original audio. And I'm trying to synchronize kind of the mouth movements with it to see if I can get the speed. But I'm intentionally not talking too loud because I don't want to cover up the original audio. I want to make sure I can hear the original signal, the original audio.
Anitta, muito obrigada por você ter vindo. A gente sabe que a sua agenda é muito lotada, um pouco desarrumada. Agora, Anitta, muito obrigada por você ter vindo. A gente sabe que a sua agenda é muito lotada, desarrumada. Agora, Anitta, muito obrigada por você ter vindo. A gente sabe que a sua agenda é muito lotada.
Anitta, muito obrigado por você ter vindo. A gente sabe que a sua agenda é muito lotada. Agora, Anitta, muito obrigado por você ter vindo. A gente sabe que a sua agenda é muito lotada. Agora, Anitta, muito obrigado por você ter vindo. A gente sabe que a sua agenda é muito lotada.
Um pouco desarrumada. Agora, vai ter, eu tô muito feliz.
Eu tô muito feliz. Feliz.
Hoje vai ter, eu tô muito feliz.
Feliz. Eu tô muito feliz. Feliz.
Muito feliz.
Feliz.
Eu realmente. É um prazer receber você aqui hoje. Vai ter, eu tô muito feliz. Eu realmente me sinto um pouco desarrumada.
Eu realmente me sinto um pouco desarrumada.
Realmente me sinto um pouco desarrumada. Agora.
Só prestando pouquinho de atenção aqui nos comentários, David, eu vejo o seu comentário. A fala dela é rápida até para brasileiros, tipo a da Kelly Clarkson. É isso mesmo, né? Ela fala rápido. E eu gosto disso. Às vezes é exatamente por isso que eu treino com a fala dela. Para melhorar a minha velocidade, minha capacidade de connected speech, sabe? É tipo um jeito de me desafiar. Eu gosto disso.
Anitta.
And one of the things I look at, uma das coisas que eu presto atenção é o jeito que as pessoas mudam os sons quando falam rápido. O jeito que a gente conecta uma palavra com outra ou substitui um som por outro ou qualquer coisa assim. Porque se você só prestar atenção nos sons do dicionário, sei lá, na forma isolada das palavras, isso não é o que você precisa para falar como nativo em frases inteiras. Isso são outros 500. É um outro jeito de falar. Então eu estou prestando atenção diretamente nisso, em frases inteiras conectadas com velocidade alta da fala, às vezes. E às vezes eu reduzo a velocidade, como você pode ver aqui, no que eu estou fazendo aqui nessa live. Eu reduzo a velocidade para pegar exatamente o que a pessoa está fazendo. Não o que eu acho que vai fazer, mas fico curioso, com mente aberta para ver. Ah, nossa, eu esperava que ela ia falar esse som, mas não falou. Falou esse som e deletou esse outro som, e etc.
Me sinto um pouco desarrumada.
Por exemplo, a palavra desarrumada.
A mente. Me sinto um pouco desarrumada.
Desarrumada. Acho que é mais ou menos isso.
Eu realmente. Tô muito feliz. Eu realmente.
Realmente.
Me sinto um pouco desarrumada.
Me sinto um pouco desarrumada.
Agora, Anitta, muito obrigada por você ter vindo. A gente sabe que a sua agenda é muito lotada. E, na verdade, Anitta, muito obrigada. Eu realmente me sinto um pouco desarrumada. Agora, Anitta, muito obrigada por você ter vindo. A gente sabe que a sua agenda é muito lotada.
Eu realmente me sinto um pouco desarrumada. Agora, Anitta... Esqueci a frase. Agora, Anitta, muito obrigado por você ter vindo. A gente sabe que a sua agenda é muito lotada. Eu realmente me sinto um pouco desarrumada. Agora, Anitta, muito obrigado por você ter vindo. Muito obrigado por você ter vindo. A gente sabe que a sua agenda é muito lotada. Tô chegando, hein? Mas uma coisa é poder falar rápido, outra coisa é poder falar de um jeito que esteja alinhado com a fala do nativo. Não só na velocidade, mas também em cada vogal, cada consoante, de um jeito que soe nativo. São outros 500. É outra coisa. Pode ser relacionado, mas não adianta muito falar bem rápido, mas de um jeito que não seja... Qual a palavra em português? Inteligível? Entendível? Não sei. De um jeito que dê para entender. De um jeito que seja dentro dos padrões dos nativos. Algo que seja familiar para eles, para vocês, brasileiros. Quero falar de um jeito que pareça brasileiro, até. Então, cada vogal, cada consoante, ritmo, melodia, estresse, escolha das palavras, tudo.
Agora, Anitta, muito obrigada por você ter vindo.
A gente sabe que sua agenda é muito lotada. Tô chegando aí com essas frases aí. O que ela falou? Buscando na minha memória de novo, pra começar a frase de novo. Eu realmente me sinto um pouco desarrumada. Agora, Anitta, muito obrigada por você ter vindo. Muito obrigado, muito obrigada. Eu sei que tô falando desde o ponto de vista de uma mulher, falando obrigada, mas enfim, desarrumada. Mas é isso, eu tô treinando exatamente o que ela falou. Muito obrigada por você ter vindo. A gente sabe. So I could go deeper on this because I'm starting to imitate my expectation on some of this instead of the actual sounds. There's always a little bit of a mix, right? How much are we using our expectation and memory and knowledge, incorrect or correct, of the language to fill in the gaps? So previous knowledge and expectation versus actually listening to every little detail. It's more efficient to lean heavily on past knowledge, but there's a heavier risk that that is not aligned with the way that people actually speak. So when I'm doing deep analysis and imitation, I'm putting more weight on the what are they actually saying bucket, and I'm questioning my assumptions, my expectations. So I'm sort of minimizing the amount that I'm depending on expectation and past knowledge, and I'm maximizing or increasing the amount that I'm listening with an open mind and questioning every sound. Let me take a note of that, actually. So what was that concept I just said? So it's this idea of like two buckets kind of and a slider between them. And in one bucket, you have previous knowledge, assumptions, expectations of the language. Because you see, part of the point of why I'm doing these types of behind the scenes lives is for me to stress test my ideas about how accent and language learning work. And not just that, but also just to do it and see what comes up, because there are things that I do without knowing how to explain it. I just do it because it feels right, and I've been doing it for years or decades. I'm good at doing this stuff. I think I'm better at doing this stuff than I am at teaching it. So it's for me to figure out what am I actually doing and learn how to describe that and communicate that so that you can replicate that too. Okay, so yeah, previous knowledge, expectations, assumptions. I'm, writing this on a sheet of paper so I can remember, and this can become content, paid and free content and stuff I use to help my clients. Expectations, assumptions. That's on the left, and on the right, I'm putting listening to what was actually said. / not said. Because, to give a quick example of that, so I've kind of learned the words that they're saying, decoré as frases, in this little tiny section here that Tata is saying, right? It's like, you've heard me say it a couple times, but let me zoom in on kind of the ending section. It's muito obrigado por você ter vindo. A gente sabe que a sua agenda é muito lotada. So there, I'm using my previous knowledge of Portuguese to fill in the gaps for what I expect each of those vowels and consonants to be, and for how I expect them to be connected. But that may not be 100% aligned with how Brazilians do it in general, and it may not be 100% aligned with a Carioca accent, and may not be 100% aligned with Tata's specific accent, and it also may not be aligned with the way that Tata said it in this specific moment. So each of those is a layer where there could be some sort of deviation. Maybe that's meaningful, maybe it's not, but part of my job and going deep with accent is to realize that I don't know when it's valuable and when it's not because I have blind spots. So if I wanted to, I could go deeper and check the sounds. You know, I could use Audacity or slow down. Let me do a little bit, just demonstration and for myself because I'm going to learn from doing this. Because like I'm probably pretty close already, but I don't know that for sure. So let me check. Maybe I'm going to learn something. Oftentimes when I do this, I don't know where the value is, but I end up discovering hidden value by just choosing to go deep. So I'm going to record that section here in Audacity. And this is what I call, again, deep analysis and imitation. I could just shadow lightly and move on, or I can go deeper and deeper and deeper and discover deeper details, kind of like layers of an onion. Okay. And those deeper details help me with everything else for the rest of my life, basically. When it comes to Brazilian accents in general, etc. Gonna record.
Agora, Anitta, muito obrigada por você ter vindo. A gente sabe que a sua agenda é muito lotada.
All right, so now I got that. Cut out the part at the end where I talked. Cut out the beginning. Let's figure out where the main part started.
Agora, Anitta, muito obrigada por você. Muito obrigada por você ter.
So we'll start there.
Muito obrigada por você ter vindo. A gente sabe que a sua agenda é muito lotada.
There's her breath. Cut that out after the word lotada. Now this is where we can go really deep and discover new things that I've never noticed before, and maybe even new things that you have never noticed before about your own accent, or about a Carioca accent, or Tata's accent, or whatever. Maybe we find something, maybe we don't, but most likely, if I look hard enough, I will find new things that I've never noticed before, and that are relevant and valuable. Excuse me. You know, one man's trash is another man's treasure. There's probably hidden gold that you're stepping over all the time without realizing it. For instance, I could check this vowel. Did she do E? Did she do a little bit more relaxed toward I, or partway in between? I'd say it's slightly relaxed. It's not a full like E. It's more of a I, obri, obri. I could also check the O or O or whatever at the beginning of obrigado, but in this case, probably combined with something else. You know, the previous vowel from the previous word or whatever. Yeah, because muito, you got the tu, or however that gets realized here. It's not a full u or o. It's more like a muito, and then does that like glide into the next vowel? Something like that. Muito obrigado. I'm not doing it perfect. I could record myself and compare. Muito obrigado. And some of this might happen naturally just from me talking fast, but maybe some of it won't. So that's why I'm checking it.
Muito obrigada. Muito obrigada.
Muito obrigado.
Muito obrigada. 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 Muito obrigada.
Muito obrigado. Muito obrigado. Muito obrigado. Muito obrigado. Muito obrigado. Let me try to record myself. Muito obrigado. Muito. I think there's some differences here that might be meaningful. Mu. I hear her doing more of a mu. And I'm doing a more open vowel. Mo. And she's doing mu. Muito. So maybe I need to close that vowel more. not sure. Muito, 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 muito. I may have some blind spots there. I'm not sure. I feel like there might be some meaningful differences, but I'm not sure how to analyze it yet. But I think a tentative conclusion I'm getting here, so this is maybe the first sacada, a potential, a tentative conclusion, a hypothesis that I want to test, is that in the word muito and maybe other related words, maybe I have a tendency to start out that vowel in a way that's more open than some native speakers do in some moments at least. Now I could check this against other moments where tata says muito, that word, and I could check it against other Brazilians, other accents. But there's this hypothesis now that maybe there's a meaningful difference in the way that I'm starting that word, the beginning of that vowel sound. So let me see if I can imitate her a little bit better. Muito, 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 muito. That'll be different than what I did. Mo. Kind of mo versus mu to oversimplify it, but that's the basic idea. Mu. So if I try to imitate that again, let me hear it first.
Muito obrigada. Muito obrigada. Muito obrigada. Muito obrigada. Muito obrigada. Muito obrigada. Muito obrigada.
Muito. And if I want, I'm fast forwarding sort of in this process a little, because I don't actually want to do this yet, but I could go to English, Portuguese, search muito, and then I can listen to other people saying it and see, do I think there's a pattern here?
Filosófico tendem muitas vezes a ter viés muito mais radical.
And I could see how open or closed is that beginning of the vowel, and what are the patterns depending on where the speaker is from and stuff, and how important is that? Or is it just kind of an arbitrary random thing in this one case that not all Brazilians do or whatever? Muito. But I would guess it's probably a pattern for a lot of Brazilians. Muito. É muito. Muito.
Obrigada por você ter. Muito obrigada. Muito obrigada. Muito obrigada.
Muito.
Muito obrigada.
Muito. Let me record myself.
Muito obrigada. Muito obrigada.
Muito obrigada. Muito obrigada. Muito obrigada. Muito obrigada.
Muito obrigada.
Muito obrigada. Muito obrigada. Muito obrigada.
Muito obrigada. Muito obrigada. Muito obrigada. Muito obrigada.
Muito obrigada.
Muito
Muito
obrigada.
obrigada. Muito
Muito
obrigada.
obrigada.
Muito obrigada. We'll see if I got the vowel to close a little bit more. Muito. Maybe. Let's check the beginning. I think it's more similar now. So that to me is exciting. It's a tiny thing, but it's a big thing, because this is what accent is. And of course I can check to see how consistent it is. Again, what variation is there from moment to moment, speaker to speaker, accent to accent. But my belief here is that I noticed a difference that I was not aware of in comparing a recording of myself versus the original target audio. And then I recorded myself a couple times until it sounded basically the same. And to me, now it sounds basically the same, or it's a lot closer. I think I identified a gap and closed the gap to a significant extent. There may still be some differences, but I think I made a meaningful improvement here. And now I can continue to test this hypothesis and confirm, is this a real thing that I want to, apply in other contexts? And if so, where do I apply that? In what contexts? That's kind of the distribution aspect. If you've heard me talk about o método FDP, feature distribution phrase, I guess I'm starting to teach more in this lab. Hey, that's fine, whatever. I'll go back and forth. It's an experimental thing. Feature distribution phrase. So in this, I started with phrase. I started with a organic, naturally spoken native phrase or phrases or whatever, but like Not a full video, just zoomed in, going deep on a phrase or two, and trying to imitate it perfectly. And then to help me do that, I zoomed in even further and started looking at individual features. So individual vowels and consonants, the exact sounds, beginning pieces of vowels, middle piece, and, go piece by piece through the audio and check it. And in doing that, I noticed, oh yeah, I think I'm doing this differently than the original audio. And that's where, recording yourself and checking and that kind of thing is helpful too. But that was moving from a phrase focus to, within that phrase, a feature focus. And now that I'm kind of identifying a potential way to tune this feature, this mu beginning of a word, especially in the context of a word like muito, muito. Now I can also look at distribution. So in this case, I already have one sort of data point for distribution, which is this mu can show up in muito. But now I can start asking myself, where else could this show up? And I can start imagining, I can start guessing it. Maybe it's other words that start with mu or have an mu in it. That would be one logical place to look. And I could go and I could start confirming that, in Youglish or whatever else. And I could also look for slightly other contexts as well, like maybe not just mu, but maybe nu or I don't know, pu, or there could be different combinations that I could start testing and seeing. But the cool part of that is I can start spreading this sort of across the dictionary throughout the language. And that's when I'm getting a higher and higher return on my investment. So I take this one little thing I discovered and I start realizing, it doesn't just apply to this one really specific situation. It applies to tons of stuff. And then then I can start, making this part of my habit. So I can start also testing or training the word muito. If I still probably want to test it more and compare it with some other speakers to see where I'm going with this. But if I like this new pronunciation, this new style, this kind of mental recipe I have for it, this adjustment I'm making, then I can start trying to habituate that. Hopefully I'm using that word right. Turn that into a habit, right? I can start putting this word into phrases, improvised phrases. I can start looking it up on Youglish and imitating more phrases from more speakers. So actually, maybe now is a good time to do that. So I can make a choice here, right? Do I want to keep going deeper in this phrase and stay focused on kind of the phrase focus and move from feature to feature throughout the phrase? I could do that. That's one approach. But I could also take a sort of a feature or distribution focus instead of a phrase focus. And instead I could say, okay, I just learned this thing about this word or this sound or whatever, mu and muito. And now what I could do is go and, say to Youglish and go check how this shows up in a bunch of other cases, other speakers, other people, and see, does my hypothesis hold? Does it seem to be valid? Does there seem to be, does this difference seem to apply more generally? And then I could also see, what about other similar words? And then I could start training this in other phrases as well. Doesn't really matter. All of this is valid. It all kind of gets me to the same place eventually, arguably. Or, both things are good to do. The phrase focus and the smaller chunks focus, feature and distribution. All right.
Radical. O filosófico tendem muitas vezes a ter viés muito mais radical. Viés.
Muito. I was checking his vowels in VS also, like what is this exact sound he's doing?
Viés.
Muito. I think he's doing the same thing as Tata, basically.
Viés muito mais radical.
Mas. I also think he said mas instead of mice. Mas.
Viés muito mais radical.
That's interesting.
Sociológico ou filosófico tendem muitas vezes a ter viés muito mais radical.
I was not aware that happened. So I know that some people say mas, like M-A-S. They say that with the kind of E sound mixed in, like mais, a gente tem que pensar. But in this case, it was the opposite. The word was mais, like algo adicional, mais, but he said it more like mas. And that is interesting. I was not aware that is a thing that happens. So that's cool.
Às vezes uma pessoa comum.
And maybe he just misspoke, but if I was guessing, I'm guessing that's actually a real thing that happens more widely than this one example.
Tá? Não necessariamente votam sem viés ideológico.
VS. VS is a good word too, so I'm improving my vocab, grammar, language usage, whatever. Viés ideológico.
E são achados, tá? Que eles apresentam no livro. Pelo contrário, às vezes uma pessoa com mais repertório filosófico tendem muitas vezes a ter viés muito...
Let me record him. Let me record a couple people. That'll make this more efficient. So what I'm going to do is mute these. And then in a new audio track, when I hit record, it'll make a new audio track. I will check. I'll record a couple people from English back and forth. I'll do this on the opposite screen. But just know that I'm doing that.
Filosófico tendem muitas vezes a ter viés muito mais radical.
E isso fez eu decidir muito cedo, com 13 anos.
Você aqui. Bem, não existe só Canton Fair, né? A Canton Fair é uma feira muito famosa, acontece...
O direito tá bem melhor. EFPTOZLPED PECFD Nossa, muito difícil de ler.
Até texturas meio irrealistas que não fazem muito sentido.
Construiu algum projeto dos sonhos, alguma coisa muito legal que você acha?
Como, não é? Quer dizer, eu acho que eu percebi desde muito cedo que eu não posso obrigar os...
Ou tem os seus aros que eu utilizo muito, sobretudo em gravação e estudo.
All right. So now I want to clean this up and kind of isolate the muito examples.
Filosófico tendem muitas vezes a ter viés muito mais radical. Mais radical.
E isso fez eu decidir muito cedo, com 13 anos. E isso fez eu decidir muito cedo, com 13 anos. E isso fez eu decidir muito cedo, decidir muito cedo. De muito cedo, com 13 anos. Cedo, com... Cedo.
Almost say.
Cedo.
Cedo.
Cedo. Cedo. Cedo.
Cedo. Cedo.
Cedo. Cedo.
Interesting. So as I'm focusing on one thing, I also notice other things along the way.
Você aqui. Bem, não existe só Canton Fair, né? A Canton Fair é uma feira muito famosa. É uma feira muito famosa. Acontece...
O direito tá bem melhor. EFPTOZLPED Nossa, muito difícil. Muito difícil de ler.
Até texturas meio irrealistas que não fazem muito sentido. Fazem muito sentido.
Construiu algum projeto dos sonhos, alguma coisa muito legal,
Como, não é? Quer dizer, eu acho que eu percebi desde muito cedo que eu não...
I don't know if he's from Portugal or if it's a specific Brazilian accent I'm not familiar with, but I'm going to leave that one out because it sounds different to me. Not that it's bad, I'm not sure if that's what I'm aiming for.
Ou tem os seus aros que eu utilizo muito, sobretudo em... sobretudo em gravação e estudo.
All right.
Muito mais radical.
Obrigado, David, no comentário. Aquele que você apagou era de Portugal, sim. Isso é o que eu achava. O que eu achei. Obrigado por confirmar.
Mais radical.
Muito. So this is where I should record myself. It's funny. I'll be honest, I often resist recording myself. I'm like, I don't want to. It takes extra effort. But there's often value in me recording myself. So yes, there's a cost involved. It takes a little bit extra effort, but there is often a return on the investment. There isn't always, but there often is. So it's this tricky thing. Like usually when in doubt, I probably should record myself unless it's really going to mess up like my flow and I lose like my train of thought of what I'm focusing on. Like usually when I record myself, it's a good chance for me to really test if I'm actually saying something the way I think I am. So something I'm trying to start changing for myself is to record myself a lot more often, and not just generic recordings about whatever, but like, although that also can be good, but in this kind of context, specific accent training, listening to a specific target like this or this, and then record myself and try to imitate it. Because I'm often going to notice, oh, my vowel sound at the beginning was slightly different, and then I can adjust it. And that's something I tell people to do, and then I sometimes do it, but I really should do it a lot more. So that's something I'm going to do right now. Muito, 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 muito. Oh, so I think his might be slightly more open, like I did that first time, like the vowel itself. Because instead of a ooh, I'm hearing a little bit more of a like slightly more open sound, I think. Just slightly. So maybe this is evidence, tentative, initial evidence or whatever, that maybe the pronunciation I was doing isn't as far off as I initially thought.
De muito cedo.
Let's check this one.
Muito, 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 de muito, de muito, de
All right, let me record myself. Muito. So my perception is that I'm going more to an open sound, like mo, oi, o, and she's doing a little bit of a higher, more closed vowel sound, muy, muy. So maybe there's, at least at certain speakers, certain accents, certain moments, maybe there's, again, maybe I'm confirming my initial hypothesis that I have a tendency to open the vowel more than a native Brazilian speaker would, I think. But in this case, instead of necessarily being at the very beginning of the sound, it might be in part of the transition, because there's this movement in the vowel from the beginning of the vowel sound to the end of the vowel sound, kind of like from oo to e, or oo, o to e, or something like that. Or however we define that, however you define it, there's kind of a beginning and an ending point for the movement of the vowel sound. And then in between them, there's sort of a path for how the vowel changes. You can imagine that path could be slightly different. And I think kind of in the middle, along that path, in this case, I think that my vowel sound is more open than the target. So, I don't know. I'll try it again. Maybe I should keep that and I can compare it again. Muy, 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 muy. It's funny. Sometimes I hear it and I'm like, ugh, like I didn't like it, or I feel like I didn't do as well as I hoped. That's okay. So if you ever feel that way, I feel that way too sometimes. think it's closer than this one. Muy, 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 I think.
Muy, muy, muy,
Muy, muy, muy,
muy, muy, muy,
muy, muy, muy,
muy, muy.
muy, muy. So I think in doubt, if I keep my vowel a little more closed for that ooh, muy, muy, in the middle, at the beginning, in the middle, it's probably going to tend to be closer. But now, let me check versus this guy.
Muito mais radical.
And think about how common this word is in Portuguese, right? So even though I'm doing this detailed work that almost no one does, this is going to help me discover some stuff that even if it only applied to this word, it's a very common word in Portuguese that I need to say many, many times for the rest of my life. And it's probably not just going to apply to this word. It'll probably apply to other words too. I'm curious if I compare that to this one. I think his ending of the vowel sound is less close than mine. I hear it more of a I. And mine got all the way up to like E, ing, ing. His is more I, muy, I. Interesting. Muy, muy. Is he carioca? Let's find where he was.
Construiu direito
I
a
don't think he is, but I don't
Você
remember.
aqui.
Filosófico tendem muitas vezes a ter
What I'm wondering is because, and I don't think it's just people from Rio, but sometimes I'm noticing in people's Portuguese that where I expect there to be a E sound, it sometimes seems to be relaxed to a more of a I sound. Like instead of cidade, I might hear cidade. Instead of localizar, I might hear localizar. And part of what I'm testing right now is I'm trying to figure out where this happens, like in what words, and for which kinds of speakers, which accents. So this initial thing is claiming that maybe he is from Recife. Let's see if he lived in other places as well. Universidade de São Paulo. So don't know where he actually grew up and spent most of his life. Let's see, nascido em Recife. Faculdade da Medicina da Bahia. Okay. USP. So if I go back and listen to him now, I can ask myself, do I hear what I now perceive as like do I now perceive, his accent as being more northeastern in some way? David just said here in the comments, a vogal tá mais aberta sim. O som da vogal é basicamente de moon. E a sua vogal tá mais próxima da de book. Muito. That would be one way to think of it, yeah. I would always caution that when we use one language or an accent to compare to another, that we have to be careful because it's never going to be a perfect comparison, but it can get us in the neighborhood. So, yeah. But yeah, like you said, basicamente and próxima. So I think you understand that, right? But yeah, I do think you're probably right. It's probably in that neighborhood. That's a pretty decent way to describe it, right? So, muito. And it also might be maybe a nasalized vowel more than what I might do in the word moon, maybe. Moon, muito. Maybe not. But yeah, somewhere in that vowel, in that part of vowel space, it's probably similar. U, mu, might be a little more forward than I would do moon, maybe. Muito. I think it's more forward and more nasal, maybe. Muito. But yeah, I think I was opening it kind of like you said, like more in the neighborhood of maybe book. Muito. as far back as mo, maybe. Mo. Yeah, somewhere in there. Ficou perfeito agora. Obrigado. I assume you're meaning when I was doing the mu, muito, muito. Because that's where it felt closer to me. But yeah. But also the interesting part for me, again, is Davide, you have specific, history, specific experience based on your accent, your experience with Brazilian Portuguese, right? And that may be different than other Brazilians. So the feedback you're giving me now is valuable and I receive it. But I'm also always approaching things with a grain of salt. I'm always a little bit skeptical. I'm always questioning. I'm always testing. I'm always wanting to get evidence because there's a chance that someone else from a different part of Brazil, for instance, maybe they would give me different feedback. Maybe they would hear the vowel a little bit differently, or their vowel would be a little bit different. And that's part of what I'm trying to test by using something like Youglish, is to quickly get examples of different speakers from different backgrounds, different regions, and to see if I'm noticing differences. Like, again, I think this guy, I think his pronunciation was a little bit different than I expected. You're from Rio, cool. Carioca. Good to know. E ficou perfeito agora com a vogal de moon. Moon. Eu até falei moon de um jeito um pouco abrasileirado. Mas sim, obrigado por esclarecer. I think I remember you, David. I think we've talked on Instagram, right? I think I remember your name. It's always a little confusing when I'm switching between, Instagram and YouTube and trying to remember everyone. But I think I remember talking to you. Yeah, oh, it's raining here. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's just started raining pretty hard. It's like sunny and raining at the same time, which is always kind of interesting.
Muito mais radical.
See, to me, like what we were comparing, to me, his vowel is almost like my vowel in book. Like kind of between book and moon in a way of, using the way you described it. Kind of between those targets, somewhere in there. And then the end, he doesn't go to as high of a vowel, as closed of a vowel as I was doing. So if I try to imitate him, let me try to do that. So I think I'm getting down the muito. I think I'm getting better at doing that version of it, or getting closer to it. But let me play with this version of it and see if I can get some more familiarity with that and test. Are these really different, or is it just in my head? I don't know. You can let me know what you think in the comments if you want to. But I think it's a little bit different. Oops.
Muito mais radical. Muito mais radical. Muito mais radical. Muito mais radical.
Muito mais radical.
Muito mais radical.
Muito.
Muito.
Muito. So this is where I think I need a recording, because what I'm doing, I'm kind of floating around in space and I don't know where I am. So I need the recording to help ground me. Yeah, it's tricky. Before, the other audio was muy. something like that. Muito, 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 muito. And this is
muito, muito,
muy, muy,
muito,
muy, muy,
muito,
muy.
muito.
Let me record it and see if I'm close. Muy, 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 muito, 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 muy, muy, muito, 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 muito. Let's grab some of these. Yeah, I don't know if I like that. Let's see. But we'll compare the beginning at least. See if I got that. Nope. His is more closed, I guess. More close. I think I basically went back to what I did originally a while back. So it's interesting to see how there's almost like a magnet or gravity where I kind of went back to the original error I did. Very similar sound to what I did the very first time. Let's check some of these other ones. I'm doing like mo. That one's a little closer. Muy. Ooh, maybe that one. I don't know. Let's compare it. Muy. I think that's close. But then I probably messed up the ending. Yeah. Yeah, this is tricky. And also, I'm feeling kind of tired. Or like some part of me wants to skip forward and I'm like, is this worth it? You know, that kind of thing. So this is where I have a choice, right? I could keep going deeper and challenge myself to keep trying to figure it out and reach some sort of maybe conclusion, or I can always switch to something else too. And the depth that I have gone into so far, like if I keep going deeper, I think that will be valuable and I'll get more learning from that, more results from that. But also, even if I stop digging deep in this hole that I'm in right now, in this path, even if I come out of that and go on to other stuff and do some more superficial wide stuff or go deep in a different spot, I think the depth that I've created in this session up till now with this word, I do think that that's still gonna be helpful for me in the future. So I don't think it's wasted effort. I think if I go deeper right now, I might be able to, like if I don't, it doesn't have to be right now, but it could be right now or in the next hour, the next day, the next week. Like if I in some way take what I'm learning and getting from this deep session around this word, and I make sure to take those seeds of depth and plant them and water them and take care of them and grow them. I think this is, something that I can make part of my accent, that I can deepen it, that I can check it and pay attention. I can listen to other Brazilians when I'm listening to content randomly. I can try to pay more attention to how they say this word, especially when they exaggerate it, like muito, muito, or whatever. I can imagine Brazilians occasionally emphasizing that word, and I can pay extra attention to how they emphasize it now. It's probably not going to be like muito. Maybe some accents, maybe it would be. I don't know. But I'm guessing it'll often be more of a muito, something more like that for that beginning vowel sound. So now I can pay attention to that because of this depth I did. Now I've sort of primed my brain to notice that more easily, to pay attention to that. So that's cool. Let me check something here. A friend just messaged me, so I'm gonna call her in a sec. Yeah, maybe that's good enough for now. So imagine, you could do this with your American accent or whatever accent you're aiming for. Accents are made of these tiny pieces, and you're probably missing them. You're probably messing them up. You're probably thinking that you're doing these tiny details right, but you're not. And that's where the accent differences come from, or one important part of it. Obviously, accent is vowels and consonants all combined together in a sequence. That's one layer. And then another layer is the music, right? The rhythm, the melody, the stress. So there's multiple layers. Maybe we could even think of more layers on top of that. But those are like the two main layers, I would say. The sounds, vowels, consonants in a sequence and tuning them. And then the music on top of that. Rhythm, melody, stress. But yeah, in both of those layers, you're probably messing up some little details that you are not aware of, but native speakers can feel instantly. Even if they don't know how to describe it, even if they can't be specific about what it is that's different, they can probably feel it. So that's my argument, is this is what an accent is in a way when you break it down into its most fundamental parts. It's being able to take audio, zoom into it, and find these little differences. And then, yeah, basically, that's part of what makes accent. All right, so I think that's good enough for now for this session, kind of the output of this session for me, just reflecting on it. A couple things. One was the word muito, specific information around that, and the vowels there. Another takeaway for me is the value of recording myself and checking that, and how I want to do that more often. I'm taking notes, by the way. I'm writing this down because this can become content, like I said, and it can become part of my system, my method, whatever. Like, as I'm observing what I'm doing to work on my accent, I'm trying to develop some meta awareness of it so I can describe it to other people and say, hey, here's what I actually do. Not just random theory that's just, from out of nowhere, but based on my actual, like, what I personally do with my accent and what I do with my clients. Here's what you could do if you want. So yeah, value of recording myself. I'm going to record myself more often. I used to record myself a lot more, like in Spanish, and I got really good results from that. So it would make sense that if I record myself more in Portuguese, that's going to get me good results in Portuguese too. So that's something I've just been, I don't know, lazy, whatever you want to call it. Maybe lazy isn't the best word because there's kind of reasons for it. Like when I was learning Spanish, I had some different software. That was some random old software that allowed me to do quick recordings and compare myself really easily with like very few button clicks. It was a very simple little piece of software. And it would be great if I could find something like that again. Audacity is a little bit more complicated, right? But now I'm getting good at Audacity, and it's getting easier for me to do these recordings more. Like there's less effort, less cost for me to do quick recordings and check. So, yeah, I'm getting to where, what am I trying to say? It used to be easier for me to do recordings of myself. Now it's a little bit harder, but because I'm getting better at Audacity now, I'm getting to where it's easier again. And anyways, that is value that I want to capture. It's valuable to record myself, and I should do that more often. So I wrote down that. I wrote down muito, muito. Practicing that, and I can practice that when I'm on a walk or in the shower or whatever today. Muito. And I can listen to it in podcasts and content and English and whatever. I can pay attention to it. When I'm talking to my friends, I can see if they say it that way. Ooh, excuse me. And I can also keep in my mind the open question of how does this pronunciation vary for each Brazilian from one moment to another, from one speaker accent to another. I can try to keep paying attention to these variations, and I can also try to notice my own variations. So I'm noticing that I had this tendency to do a mo, like some sort of vowel like that. I think I did that probably in here. Mo, kind of, yeah, mo, almost like amo. I'm almost doing that vowel, I think. So that's my tendency that I need to be careful of. Just like if you're learning an American accent, I recommend that you try to become aware of your own tendencies, right? Maybe you're aiming for a or a vowel, like in, hit, sick, kid. This is interesting. And most Brazilians, their tendency is going to be to do that vowel in a more close position. So instead of it might come out like I, or in a more extreme version would be like e. So inside, internet. This is interesting. That would be a way that a lot of Brazilians would say it. But it could also be less exaggerated. Instead of it might just come out slightly towards e, but not all the way. So instead of this is interesting, it might come out this is interesting. This is interesting. And that would be just a slight accent compared to my accent. Another thing I wrote down was the idea of this balance between previous knowledge and expectations and stuff versus having an open mind and listening, observing to what is actually being said or not being said, and how in every moment we can kind of adjust this slider between those to see how much of each one we're doing. And I think that's part of what we're adjusting with this kind of continuum of how deep we're going in our analysis and imitation. Like if you just listen, you don't even pay attention to accent, and then you're almost all in expectation mode, just on autopilot mostly. And then if you start paying attention to the accent, now you start opening yourself up to notice new things more. There's a tendency to notice more of the accent stuff when you start caring about accent and focusing on it. Then if you start analyzing a little bit or shadowing, imitating out loud a little bit, kind of a light version of analysis or imitation, then you open it up a little more towards noticing new things. And then if you go deeper and deeper and deeper into the analysis and imitation, the deeper you go, the more you open it up, the more you have an opportunity to wake your brain up, interrupt the autopilot, and notice something new. All right, that's it for this live for today. I hope it was helpful. Let me know if you want accent help. You can go to accentmentorship.com and apply to work with me. Follow my new second channel if you want to see more lives like this that are kind of behind the scenes, maybe with some teaching, maybe not. But the main focus is just, to watch me actually work on my Brazilian accent, basically, or experiment with whatever I don't want to put on my main channel. And yeah, let me know if this helped. I don't know if you're still here, David, or not, but thanks for interacting. It was nice to get some feedback from you. And yeah,